Welcome back to the Mount Base podcast. This week, me, Danielle, the marketing manager at Mount Base, is joined by our new marketing intern, Idi. She has joined us from Canada, so she's very
cultured.
She's very Canadian.
Am I?
Yeah, I hope you enjoy this episode.
Yeah, how was your weekend? Your week?
My week's been very good, thanks. How's your second week at Mount Base been?
It's been good. Yeah, this is my second week at Mount Base. I've been having a great time. I'm just a marketing intern here with Danielle being my manager, so it's been great. So I actually live in Canada, but I was born here, moved when I was like 13. So my accent sounds a bit weird. That's why. It's like a mixture of British and Canadian accent. So you're welcome.
You're welcome for the accent.
But yeah, I've enjoyed it.
Good.
Yeah.
Maybe give the audience a bit of background on you, like what you're studying in uni.
So I have one more year of uni left. I'm taking economics and minoring in business. I enjoy it, but trying to get into that 9-to-5 work lifestyle,
The hustle life.
The hustle life. Like I've been getting on the tube every morning. But it's kind of sad.
What, the tube?
Is it not? Because everyone there on the tube around like 8:30 is going to work at 9.
Why is that sad?
It's sad because like we're all in this cycle of working a 9-to-5.
Right.
And like everyone's going to the same place. Not the same place, but everyone's doing the same thing every day.
Let's get into the podcast this week, which is on the topic of micro-influencers, the rise and fall of influencer culture. Maybe we'll just start with a definition of an influencer, just in case people don't know. So an influencer is an individual content creator who builds trusting relationships with their audiences and creates both commercial and non-commercial content. That's the wiki definition.
I'm sure everyone knows what it is anyways.
But just in case I don't,
Sorry,
okay?
Guys.
And then influencer culture is the social phenomenon of of individual sorry, I'll start that one again. The social phenomenon of individual internet users developing an online community over which they exert commercial and non-commercial influence. So
Lovely.
Let's get into the rise of influencer culture. When do you think it,
Well, like, so I'm 20, so I feel like for people around my age range, it was lots of like YouTube and stuff growing up. So I feel like when people started watching YouTube, then once you were like allowed to get Instagram, the first people you followed were the people from YouTube. And then you'd follow like musicians and celebrities and singers as well. But like you didn't have that like connection with them. So I think once we had like the main big YouTubers and everyone, they're the ones who kind of started off like that influencer culture of like sharing your day, sharing like what you're eating, sharing like where you're going out and stuff. And then slowly people have been starting to like pick up on that as well.
Yeah, so I agree. I think it was like bloggers and then vloggers. And then like as the internet like developed and like more platforms became available, it just like grew from there.
Yeah.
Like now people become influencers from TikTok. But yeah, I think like the YouTube kind of vloggers really took over from the celebrity culture, which I think was
definitely
a lot more prominent in like the early 2000s.
Yeah, because I don't really remember being like really, really obsessed with anyone. Do you remember JLS?
Yeah, obviously everyone was obsessed with JLS.
That was like about
I saw them like 4 times in the space of like 3 months.
3 months?
Yeah, I saw them like when they did... Wait, JLS came from X Factor, right?
Yeah.
So when they did like the X Factor tour, I went to that, and then I saw them with like Ollie Murs, and I think I went to see them another time as well, and it was just like...
I only saw them once, but it was really good.
Well, clearly not a fan. But when they broke up, I was a bit upset.
They got back together like recently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We should go and see them.
Are they going on tour?
I don't know, probably. After this, we'll get Alexa nice and
yeah, we'll figure it out. Yeah. Alexa.
No, not now. She'll join in.
But yeah, I definitely feel like we never had, or personally, I was never really like super obsessed with any specific celebrity or group or like singers. Like the people who I was obsessed with were like the Zoellas and stuff of like that time. And that's who I like kept up to date with and like would talk about with friends with and stuff.
Oh, really? See, I never really got onto the YouTube kind of influencer. Like I never used to watch YouTubers.
Really?
Until like Emma Chamberlain, then there was like no one before that really.
Really?
Yeah. I just didn't really get I didn't really understand the obsession.
I think I watched it more for like lots of like tutorials, like makeup tutorials. And then people then followed them and then they became more and more like,
Yeah, definitely. And then I think the Kardashians as well, like when their series came out, obviously it was like following their life. So like this whole obsession with like getting to know the backstory, getting to know what people are up to, like how they operate day to day, I think is, people still love that. Like people love knowing, like
it.
I love watching like day in the life videos.
Yeah, even if I don't really like you.
Yeah, no, I just want to know, like, just so I can just keep track on what you're up to. But yeah, the Kardashians as well. I think that kind of culture where like you'd have like the reality TV, Love Island, that's another one.
Yeah, and I also feel like with Kardashian stuff, they really push like a certain look for influencers. Like not even just the way they like physically like actually look, just also like the kind of posts that they post and like their captions. Like I feel like, I don't want to say they're the blueprint but like for some people they were like the blueprint for like how to be an influencer, especially because like some of them were like quite young and they kind of grew up like with them at the same time. So it was like, that's who people were looking at to like post things on Instagram and like how their Instagram should look like to get like more followers, more likes.
Yeah, it was like very curated, wasn't it? Like, especially, I feel like the Kardashian influence, we could do like a whole other episode on.
Whole thing.
But just in terms of like rise of influencers, I think they had a very big impact. And also like their whole aesthetic was just a whole nother plethora of issues. But so I think that kind of like break from like exclusivity, like when I was growing up, when I was like 10, I remember like reading like Heat magazine.
That's the only way you'd know.
Like, is that even a magazine anymore? Probably.
It must be.
And like OK magazine, just to get all the, like the gossip on, like just see pictures of like
celebrities,
posh becks, just like
like that's how you'd know what was happening.
Yeah, exactly. And then it was just like right there in the palm of your hand. So people like started to build like relationships and become kind of like obsessed with these people and start thinking they were friends with them. So yeah, they did have a massive impact and they still do really, but I think the scale of it now is a lot more micro influencers. Yeah,
which we'll get onto later.
So what do you think of like the rise in TikTok influencers?
Well, I think, when did TikTok even start? Like last year?
No, early. I think
before COVID.
I think it's like 2018.
Oh.
Because it used to be like Musical.ly.
Was that TikTok?
Yeah, and then it was bought by someone and then, or like it changed ownership and then it was into TikTok, yeah.
Yeah, well, I think like, because people who are on like, because there's always like Vine and stuff, right? So I feel like the same kind of like, similar kind of platform. But I feel like people who, because it just creates a platform for anyone really to like post on there, post their humor, post their videos, post them like doing their talents or whatever. And then like they have the opportunity to get like lots and lots of like traffic to their pages, which I think on YouTube is a bit, I don't know, I think like how does YouTube push out videos? I think it's just through like explore page. And then only if you know a certain person, that's when you subscribe. Whereas like on TikTok, you don't have to like subscribe to see someone's video. It's just like on your For You page. Yeah.
And I think the TikTok algorithm is like very different to other algorithms. Like it really does give, well, I think it has, I don't know if it's now changing, but like it does kind of give everyone the opportunity to like create something that could go viral.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like leveled the playing field for like the average influencer who needs a big following to get their message out, because now like any Tom, Dick and Harry could literally become famous overnight almost.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that has kind of brought around the birth of the micro-influencer. What's your opinion on that?
Well, I think micro-influencers are like quite, honestly, I didn't really know what they were until like maybe like last year. I wouldn't say, I feel like they mostly grew from, I say we saw a lot of them during COVID, because lots of people were like, especially on TikTok, posting what they're like making for breakfast, just because like everyone's like in the house, right? So then people form those small relationships with people who like don't have like over 5 million, 10 million followers. They start like building that relationship with those people because of how relatable their content is. Because I feel like lots of the stuff that you see on TikTok that does really well can just be a simple video of someone with like text saying something that like happens to millions of people every day, and like they get the likes because it happens to everyone, right?
I think it's this kind of, whole thing of like relatability. Like people don't, the life of an influencer, like your Molly Mays, like where you're like driving nice cars and you know, like being the creative director for Christian thing. Then
like, I don't have a Range Rover.
It's like not attainable really for the everyday person.
Yeah.
And although people like look up to it like an aspiration, it's not really realistic.
Yeah, no.
Whereas like the relatable content you see on TikTok of someone that's like had a rubbish day at work, but then they're going out for drinks with their friends. I don't know, they write something about it and you're like, oh my God, that's me.
Yeah, like I do that every day.
And you start to feel like a bigger connection. And I think also COVID especially like made people reevaluate like their priorities, and they were like, you know what, I'm actually here for a good time. I'm not here for the hustle life. Like just get me a drink after work.
Yeah, but I would like to.
Obviously we're here for the hustle life.
We work at Mount Base. Everyone here is hustling all the time, 24/7.
Always.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think like, I think lots of also micro influencers, when they're connecting with like brands, I think it's a really good idea for brands to reach out. I think they've been reaching out more and more to micro influencers rather than like the larger ones, because say you're a small brand and then you're not going to have the budget to reach out to like, I don't know, who's like a huge influencer, like Molly May, the Kardashians. Like you don't have that budget to reach out to those like types of people. So you find people in like certain areas who you're like, that's your target like demographic. And then that's how you push out your product, I think. Because also it's like engagement as well, right? So like millions of people could see someone who has like 10 million followers. They can see your story, but like they're not necessarily going to like all buy your product.
Yeah. And I think what you said there is very important, because it's like the engagement rate of like, say you have an influencer in your for your campaign, and it's like Kylie Jenner. Yeah. Her engagement rate actually will not be as good as someone that has like 10,000 of like followers who are actually engaged. It's like a community.
It's a bit of a niche, right?
Exactly. So I think it's more cost effective to use micro influencers, and also it's more authentic as well. Like especially if that is an influencer you've followed for a while and you know they genuinely like the product, like they've been saying about it for ages, and then that brand reached out and be like, hey, like you're already promoting us, like let's just pay you to do it. I think that's the most like authentic and like I don't know, realistic way of using micro influencers, especially for brands that are small and have less of a budget. Yeah. But I also think for influencers, it is important to like, if you genuinely like something and you've not even got a partnership with that like brand yet, I think it's important to still post about it, because then you eventually will build up a partnership of like, hey, I'm already promoting the stuff you do. Or like, say there's a restaurant you go to and you're always going there and they're like, oh, we'll give you a free dinner because you've been here so many times.
But do you think people like to do that though? I don't think they do. Like, I feel like lots of influencers, whether they're like micro or not, I feel like they don't really like to post as much of like things that they're actually using, because they feel like they expect some sort of like pay for it.
But I think a lot of the time they say like, this isn't a sponsored ad. Like I genuinely just like something. Like I saw on TikTok, I can't remember who it was. I don't know. She was on Love Island a couple of years ago and she was like, this isn't a sponsored ad. This is just something I'm doing. And I love it. Like, so yeah, I think when you see something like that, it does make you feel like, oh, they actually are genuine people. Like, because it's almost like if your friend recommended you something, you would obviously trust them. Yeah. And if you then found out they were being paid to do it, you'd be like, oh, maybe I don't trust you. But if you have that right balance of being like, hey, I'm being paid to say this and I'm not being paid to say this, and it kind of makes the whole experience more natural.
I'm just going to add in something.
Yeah, you go on.
But like, I just feel like I don't even really follow any like huge influencers, I don't think. Like I do follow mostly like micro influencers, because they're like people who are like into the same type of fashion that I'm into, or like more like people who are like influencing more social like causes. I feel like there's lots of that recently. And like, honestly, some of them, if you DM them like, oh, where'd you get this from? They'll like respond to you because you're like part of their like any few thousands or tens of thousands followers. So they too also have a relationship with their followers. So like if someone was like you were saying, recommending a product, I'm way more likely to like actually go out and buy it or like use a certain like platform than I would be if like, I keep saying like the Kardashians, but like I can't think of anyone else, but like that I would be if like Kylie Jenner was like, oh, go get these like vitamin gummies, they're gonna like make you look amazing, which like she doesn't use those.
Definitely. Although saying that, I've reached out to like micro influencers. I remember I asked this one person what paint she had on her wall.
She didn't tell you.
She didn't tell me. Didn't reply.
Maybe it went to like her like junk DM.
Maybe I should try again. I just wanted to know what colour it was because I wanted the same one on my wall.
Maybe you can do like the colour picker thing.
That's actually a really good idea.
Oh, but you need to know the brand. Yeah, so I just Googled this. I don't know how accurate it is because I feel like lots of influencers, I mean, I'll get onto that in a bit, but it's expected to grow like for the budget, I guess. Is that a budget? To like 13.8 billion. That's in US dollars for like budget for influencer marketing. Because I feel like lots of companies are steering away from getting a billboard or like paying for like an ad on like TV. Like I don't think many people are doing that much anymore. They're more paying like, because they know social media is where everyone is. Like everyone's on social media. My parents have Instagram, like they're on it. Like, so everyone who's on social media will see like all your content. Like you really don't need to pay that much money to like get a billboard. Also, I feel like lots of people would complain and be like, oh, influencers get this much money to post something. But companies are actually saving money from how they used to advertise things. Like, I don't know how much a billboard is, but I think it's pretty expensive to have it for like a certain amount of time. So like all they're doing is reallocating their marketing budget and just giving it to influencers. So I don't think that like, I wouldn't say it's not fair. I also wouldn't say it's like an easy job to have either, because you're like, these people are also like putting themselves like out onto the internet. But I think lots more influencers now are being way more transparent with like how much money they're earning. Because I don't think online it's very like accurate, because like where are they getting like those statistics
and
from?
I think this rise in transparency again is really important. We were saying earlier like minority like influencers don't get paid as much. So
and they don't even know.
They don't know they're not being paid enough. And it's the same in any industry, really. Like, I think our generation are a lot more transparent about how much they're earning.
Like
I know how much most of my friends
How much do you make?
But I think it's important, especially for influencers and macro influencers, to be open, because then it means the micro influencers like know like what to like track and like what they should be like aiming for, because it's also not that it's the brand's fault, but a lot of brands do like haggle down and like say like, oh, you're only getting £10 for this post.
Because if you can get away with it, like you're gonna do it, right? So it's like, I don't think it's anything personal towards the influencer, but if someone, that's why I think it's important to people, whatever career like path you're in, is to be aware of what the standard rate is, and then also be aware of like what your specific skills and talents are, and like express that to people, whether it's for like whatever job it's for. And so that you know your worth, simply. And if they're not giving you what you think you should be receiving, like go somewhere else. I think that's something that our generation is going to be like really good at. Like we're not going to stay in a job with like bad pay and just accept it. So I think, because I was listening to another podcast, and it was like an influencer, they were just talking about how for like months and months, they were just accepting like bad deals. Then they spoke to one of their friends and they were like, oh my God, no, I have less followers than you and I'm earning like this much per post. So it's like, unless you're aware of what's happening, like people aren't going to just hand over the money, really.
Yeah. And I think because it's like such a lucrative industry at the moment, because there's not really like much guidance around it. There's no like, I don't really know if there is, but I don't think there's any like regulation around it. So a brand can really just make up a number. And like you say, if you don't know what you should be earning, you'll just accept it, especially if you're just starting. Like any brand deal would be like, someone could offer me like £5. I'd be like, I'll do that.
£5. Yeah.
I remember when I was like running my food page, someone reached out and was like,
you had a food page?
Yeah, just like making like vegan food on Instagram. I didn't have many followers. And I remember someone reached out to me and they were like, oh, like we'll give you like all this like chopping board or something. They're like, you have to pay for it though, but like we'll give you a code if you get people to buy it. And I was like, yeah. And then I realized, I was like, actually, I'm just giving them money now. Like, so I do think if you're just starting out, how are you meant to know any better? It's not like you can just go on like Glassdoor and be like, how much should I be earning? Yeah,
but people are just earning like so many, like it's just such a range of like pricing and stuff. So I don't think, that's why I think once you're in that influencer culture, I think it's really important to like make relationships with other people who are doing the similar things to you. So you like know what the standard is, pretty much.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's really important. So I think we've kind of touched on it now, but like, so they're like the do's and don'ts of like being an influencer. But then I also think there's like do's and don'ts of like working with influencers as well for like brands. So I think definitely build strong, authentic relationships and make sure that they're like ongoing partnerships, because I think that works better for like you and the influencer, but then also for your audience, because it builds more trust if they know that that influencer is genuinely like, they genuinely like your products, they like working with you, and then there's clearly like a reason that they do that. So I think building the trust and like making like kind of like a community of influencers that support your brand, because then it feels a lot more like a recommendation from a friend when an influencer says to everyone, hey, go buy this face cream.
And if they've been saying it for like months, you know, if you have that like long lasting, like, I don't know if it's a contract, like probably, but if you have that long lasting like relationship with certain influencers, then like way more people are going to like, I mean, you said it, like way more people are going to be buying the product.
Yeah, definitely. I think another important thing is to make sure that the influencers that you're
sorry, what was I like staring at you? I think I might have zoned out.
You were just like,
no, so the light's like quite bright, so I'm just like staring into Danielle's eyes.
So like ensure that the influencers that you're using and you're approaching actually align with your like your brand mission and vision, because there's no point having an influencer that's like notoriously outspoken about something controversial and then you're saying the opposite thing. It's just stupid. It looks silly. I think there's like been a recent scandal with like Burberry and that Russian model.
I didn't hear about it.
Oh, I just saw it on... Do you follow Diet Prada?
Yeah, I do.
It was on there. I love all the gossip.
I love Diet Prada gossip.
So I think that's very important, because if something goes wrong with that influence, then it also reflects on your brand as well. So pick wisely. And again, this is why micro-influencers is probably better, because their audience isn't so...
Their audience
huge.
is definitely... Like, it's more of a niche, right? So, like... If you follow someone who's posting like your vegan cooking videos and say you like got sponsored by Corn, that's like the brand, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Say you got sponsored by them, like people are gonna be like, oh, Danielle likes Corn. And
I do like Corn.
And like she only has like 1,000 followers. So like she must be being like honest about what she likes, because they're not paying her that much.
Although Corn actually isn't vegan. A lot of it isn't vegan.
Oh.
Yeah.
See, I don't know what vegan options there are in the UK.
What vegans are there in Canada?
I just start naming people.
What vegan options?
There's lots of like Beyond Meat, lots of like super niche stuff. If you go into like Whole Foods, that's like way too expensive, which I don't really understand. But yeah, there's just lots of like, there's lots of options there. But I just feel like, what was I saying? But yeah, if you have a smaller brand, like definitely more people are going to like approach you and like feel more like the audience is going to be way more trusting of your opinion.
Yeah. And then like back to the like vision stuff. If you say you're a skincare brand and you make skincare products for people with eczema, for example, it's so much better to use an influencer who has struggled with that condition, because then you have like deeper narratives around your campaign and it feels a lot more, I feel like we're saying it again and again, but authentic. Like, so there's no point using someone that's had clear skin for their whole life, because then people will be like, well, I'm sure the product did work because they didn't have a problem in the first place. So I think it's just very important to be like mindful of your audience and who you're like trying to target and the message you're trying to send out. And then again, be transparent with how much you're paying them, what your targets are, exactly what they need to do. Be very clear with the brief. Make sure that like they know what they're signing up for, and you're not like 2 months down the line being like, you were meant to get us like 5,000 signups and you got us 3.
Did you hear about like what happened at Coachella with the Revolve event?
No. Yeah. What happened?
So like at Revolve, so like all these like influencers, mostly like in the States and stuff, went down to like the Revolve festival. I don't know the exact details of this, but like if you go, basically Revolve reaches out to you and is like, if you spend $5,000 on Revolve, like on outfits, you get a ticket basically to come to Revolve Fest, which is like separate to Coachella, but it's like on the same weekend or whatever. And like, but apparently they have to post like a bunch of stories, like, so you know when people's stories are like, you can see like 100 and 100 stories. Apparently they have to post like a bunch of stories. It's like really hard. They have to like do all these things. And like, apparently when they got there, they were like, okay, who's a big influencer? Who has this many followers? Like trying to separate them into like who gets to go in first and stuff. And they're like, hey, who's the micro influencers? Oh, you only have 10,000 followers. Like, you can't, like, come on.
But they already had to pay like £5,000.
Yeah, like they paid to get all to like buy the clothes. I think. And it someone correct me if I'm wrong.
And it wasn't even at Coachella.
No, it's Revolve Festival. So Revolve Festival like happens.
And who was that? Who was playing?
I think like Post Malone was there or something, or like someone like him, or like
someone like Post
Malone. I don't know. Wait, no, who's what everyone likes right now? Jack Harlow. I think he was there.
Oh, okay. Moving on, back to the do's and don'ts of influencer marketing. Giving influencers a script and telling them exactly what to say is a very bad idea.
Bad idea.
Because if someone is involved with that influencer and they know exactly like the kind of thing they'd say, if they come through with like some big words that no one knows what they mean, like hyaluronic acid, what even is that?
That's not a big word. That just is what it is. There's not another word for that.
There's obviously a better word for that.
Hyaluronic acid.
Yeah.
No, it's literally just like, that's like saying there's another word for water.
There is, H2O.
Okay, do you want to mention, what's the chemical compound of hyaluronic acid?
I don't know, you probably know.
I dropped out of chemistry.
Yeah, so like giving an influencer a script is a bad idea. Do you remember that time when Scott Disick posted the actual caption that's like, obviously the PR people had sent him, and it said like, please post this at 4 p.m.
4 p.m. EST.
And make the caption, and he just posted the whole thing. Yeah. And another thing is to not go against like the ASA guidelines. Yeah. Be very clear that something's an ad.
I feel like that's different in the UK than it is in States and in Canada.
Oh, really? What are the guidelines there?
Like, I feel like people don't put hashtag ad on everything there.
Oh, so you don't know if something's an ad?
I don't think so. I think here it's required, right?
Yeah, you have to. If something's an ad, you need to say paid.
Yeah, and wasn't that quite recent? Like last... I feel like that was
it's pretty recent, yeah. Maybe in the last year.
Like, I feel like I mostly see it on people who I follow that are from the UK. Mm-hmm. I don't follow that many like American influencers, but or they'll be like, oh, hashtag gifted. Like, this is gifted if something was like given to them and they didn't pay for it. But yeah, I think it's quite clear usually now more than before if something is like given to you by someone. Or
I think that's because the Advertising Standards Authority is just in the UK.
Yeah.
It's different, but I'm surprised that in America they don't also have that.
I feel like they might have something, but I don't think it's as strict as it is here.
Yeah, because I think there was like
there was something that happened.
Like law, like case or something about influencers like brainwashing children.
Oh, children.
Yeah, like just being a negative influence on their mental health, which I agree with. I do think that if something's an ad or if something's edited, it should be.
True, with like filters and stuff.
Okay, anything else to add on influencers?
Just something with like do's. I mean, some of the don'ts that I think that like brands should watch out for. I think it's like leaning in too much into like the diversity, like what do you call it? Like the diversity, like point of view. That's not the word I'm looking for. Like when you lean too much into sustainability, you're like, oh, we're super sustainable. Oh, we're super diverse. So we like reached out to this influencer. Like it becomes a bit performative. Mm-hmm. So I think that's when that's why I feel like lots of companies need to, although it's hard to not look performative when you're genuinely trying to do the thing.
I think performative inclusivity and like diversity is only the case when you then look at like who's in charge of the company, who's actually works for the company. And if you look at their board of like directors and it's not as diverse as their marketing campaigns, then you know there's like some sort of like...
Yeah, like who's advising you on what to post, on like what sort of campaigns to have. Because it's like, I was watching this whole like, did you watch that Hollister documentary? She's munching on a blondie. I'll explain what it was. But like on Netflix, there's like the Hollister documentary, and it's basically about how like the whole board of directors were like white men or like white people in general. And then
I did actually watch it.
Yeah. And like as the years went on, there were they like had to.
Was that not the Abercrombie one?
Oh, sorry, Abercrombie, Hollister, same people. But they had to bring in like mostly like Black employees to work for them, to like work on to teach diversity courses to like the employees and stuff, because they used to only let them work in the back. They didn't let them work on the shop floor if you weren't like
Really?
attractive enough. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember them saying that.
Yeah.
Like, and they all of their like guidebooks on like who to employ were like literally like good looking
Blonde,
white people.
with blue eyes.
Uber and what's it like?
Aryan race.
Aryan like Übermensch.
Übermensch? Is that German?
German. It means like Superman.
Superman. But yeah, just like things like that. I think it's hard to get back behind a company when they haven't really been that representative before, which is why I think now lots of like Fenty, for example, they came out straight away with all the like inclusive like makeup ranges from like the lightest of light to the darkest of dark, like everything in between. And that's why I think lots of people are trying to now like replicate that. And that's why lots of people got behind it from like the get-go. Like I think regardless of like who the founder was, I think people were just like behind the brand itself, not just like the person behind the brand. And I think that's another thing that I think is quite important, is to separate yourself from your brand so that when you're marketing it, you're actually like, that's just what your brand is. It's not based off of you. It's not based off of like who's specifically on your team. It's just like your brand values at the end of the day.
Yeah, definitely. I think you said there, your brand tone of voice and your brand mission and vision doesn't have to be the same as like what you believe.
Yeah.
But as long as like you're not creating something just for the sake of it,
Exactly.
and trying to, you know, have this facade of like inclusivity, if you don't feel like that, don't pretend you do, because it's very clear and it becomes obvious when something is just performative. So be careful of that.
Yeah, just be careful.
Just watch your back.
Watch your back, or I won't buy your stuff. But yeah, to like wrap this up kind of, I just think micro-influencers, because that's kind of what we're focusing on today, are definitely going to be way more useful for brands, especially smaller brands. And I think for brands, we went over the do's and don'ts, like just be true to like, just be honest, I think, with the people you're working with, and be honest with your audience, like people who are like going to be buying from these influencers. Like don't try and be someone you're not, basically. And I think that's what everyone is looking for now. It's like authenticity and people just being realistic on like what their lives are and like what they use in their day-to-day lives, I think.
Yeah, I think you've summed that up really well. I completely agree. I think that the desire for authenticity is the driving force behind a lot of like the way people operate online now. So if you are an influencer or if you're a brand, just like trying to emulate that in everything you do is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Be yourself, because everyone else is taken.
Thank you guys for listening to the Mount Based podcast today. We went over all things about being a micro-influencer and do's and don'ts of working with micro-influencers. Don't forget to like, and if you want to watch this video, we also post this on YouTube. And also sign up to our
Pre-launch waitlist.
Pre-launch waitlist.
We've got some huge giveaways coming up, so you don't want to miss it. Yeah, thank you.